If you've played the Final Fantasy Pixel Remasters, you've probably heard some grumbling about the extra content that was cut. One of the big cuts? Final Fantasy II Soul of Rebirth. So what is it? And was cutting it really a big deal? Spoiler warning for Final Fantasy II Soul of Rebirth, or just Final Fantasy II in general. I'm going to go over the plot, so in the rare chance that you intend to play this, please don't go any further. You've been warned. Soul of Rebirth was post-game content added to the Game Boy Advance and PSP versions of Final Fantasy II. It unlocks after completing the main story and begins with Minwu awakening in what he believes is the Jade Passage, Final Fantasy II's path to hell. He retains all of his stats, magic level, and equipment, or lack thereof, from the main game. Soon he runs into Prince Scott of Kashwan, yes, Hilda's ex and Gordon's older brother, who technically has never been playable before. And he's in rough shape. Weak stats, awful gear, the enemies don't go easy, there's a high encounter rate, and resource management becomes a constant concern, since you don't have any items to begin. It's not an easy start by a long shot. Minwu explains what happened after their deaths, catching Scott up on the Resistance progress, and after slogging through rough encounters, they end up finding Joseph in battle with a zombified Borgin, his killer in the snow cave. Joseph joins the team very briefly in the base game and pretty close to the beginning, so it's very unlikely he's in a better state than Scott. Though, since he's a punchy guy, his lack of weapons isn't a huge drawback. Deeper in the cave, we run into Ricard, chasing the same worm that we killed in Leviathan's mouth. With him, the party's complete, 4 fallen heroes who never got the spotlight they deserved. The group discovers a portal leading to Makanan, a town eerily similar to Poft. It's filled with those who died at the hands of the Emperor. Cid, Tobal, and even children are there, not really sure what's going on. Cid, ever the realist, notes this place doesn't feel like hell and tasks the group with uncovering the truth of their location. For some religious context, the Book of Enoch calls Makanan the fourth heaven, or the Garden of Eden, a space between heaven and earth.
If you're frightened of dying and you're holding on, you'll see devils tearing your life away. But if you've made your peace, then the devils are really angels, freeing you from the earth. It's just a matter of how you look at it, that's all. So don't worry, okay? Okay?
The party finds various shops, an inn, and 2 portals. One leads to a copy of the Ultima chamber, where they fight the Ultima weapon. This proves to be a pretty brutal battle that punishes physical attackers and demands you to grind up black magic for Joseph or Ricard. Your reward? A level 1 Ultima tome. The northern portal leads to what they think is Pandemonium, but this actually turns out to be Arubath, the Palace of Heaven. After navigating through some of the most hellish encounters with the worst status effects and insta-kill spells, you climb to the highest floor, where the Emperor rests on his throne. Ricard points out this Emperor looks different, and rightly so. When Mateus died, his soul split into 2. The Dark Emperor fell to hell and gained power, while the Light Emperor ascended. He explains that the group originally arrived in Rakia, not the Jade Passage, a realm for fallen angels turned demons. Essentially, they're in purgatory. The Light Emperor pleads for forgiveness, offering eternal life in Arubath, but the ghosts of loved ones appear, showing the final battle Firion and friends are having versus the Dark Emperor at the exact same moment. The party sees through his deception. The Light Emperor is no better than his dark counterpart. They reject him, and you fight one of the most elegant looking final bosses in Final Fantasy history, in my opinion. Upon defeat, he mutters that mankind's cycle of violence will continue, just as Furion and crew defeat his dark half. Minwu, Scott, Joseph, and Ricard say their goodbyes and fade away in peace. Minwu reflects that if anyone can change the legacy of violence, it's Furion, Maria, Guy, and Leon, maybe. Probably more so Layla, though, let's be real. The ending is bittersweet, symbolic, thoughtful, but also not really worth the grind, as it kind of just rehashes the exact same scenes as the base game's ending. And when I say this is brutally a grindy experience, I really mean it. You survive off of the scraps from McCannon shops and basically whatever the enemy drops. The best gear? Hidden behind some very nasty fights. And unless you prepped for this, you're in for a rough time. There's no real payoff outside of narrative closure, and for most players that might not be enough, especially on their first playthrough. So what are my final thoughts here? For the rare Final Fantasy II fan like me...
Oh, stop booing! There's nothing wrong with it! There are dozens of us! Dozens!
Soul of Rebirth is a fascinating epilogue, but it's also an incredibly punishing one. Most first playthrough gamers wouldn't even think to prep their character for this kind of challenge, let alone know that the characters are going to die. A fun fact, though, that I have found in researching this is that even though Soul of Rebirth wasn't included in the Pixel Remaster, remastered sprites for Scott and Zombie Borgin still exist in the game's data. So maybe they did consider it at one point. If you want closure for Minwu and company, this offers it. If you crave a tough, grind-heavy challenge, it'll definitely scratch that. But for everyone else, stick with the Pixel Remaster. Enjoy the base game, and if you really love FF2, give the PSP or GBA version a try. This is kind of a shorter one compared to normal, but honestly, the gameplay for Soul of Rebirth is probably mostly just grinding, otherwise an hour and a half total. So there's not much to show. I appreciate everybody who tunes in. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. It's really hard to find people who actually like this game. So it'd be really cool if I actually could interact with anybody who does. And I'll see you next time.